Could the Pittsburgh Steelers consider trading head coach Mike Tomlin to the Tennessee Titans next offseason? I'm going to talk about that possibility at the top of today's edition of Steelers Talk. Also, we got the latest Steelers injury updates from Mike Tomlin in his weekly press conference. And then also in that press conference, Coach T made a stunning admission that you are not going to want to miss. I'm going to discuss that at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around to the end of today's program. But before we get into the content today, make sure you give me a follow on X at Jack_Sperry. If you guys want my instant reactions to Steelers news items, injury updates, trade rumors, all that stuff, I put my instant reactions to that kind of stuff on my X account, as well as our film analysis that we do. I put up on X because we can't put it up here on YouTube. So if you guys want my weekly film analysis, as well as my instant reactions to Steelers news items before I get a video out here on Steelers Talk, give me a follow at Jack_Sperry. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. All right, so we'll start here with a quote-unquote report from Josina Anderson earlier today saying, meanwhile, there is a longtime NFL head coach out there who is considering wanting a change of scenery and has told others of these thoughts. If he acts on those lingering feelings, his departure would clearly add to the list of vacancies. And Josina does have connections to the Steelers organization, and in particular, Mike Tomlin. She's certainly laid down some hints like this last offseason. She said, there's going to be some interesting changes made in Pittsburgh. You trade George Pickens, bring in DK Metcalf, you bring in Aaron Rodgers. Certainly, it seems like Josina had the inside scoop on all that stuff before it actually happened. And some are speculating that the mystery coach that Josina is talking about is Coach Tomlin because of her connections to the Tomlin team. And now I will want to keep you guys, you guys want to keep this in mind here, that if Tomlin does end up leaving this offseason, it'll likely be in a trade. I highly doubt the Pittsburgh Steelers want to pick up the rest of the money on Mike Tomlin's contract, and a trade would be something that would be possible because you can get that money off your books, and you can get some draft capital in return for Mike Tomlin. So if Tomlin leaves, I think it'll likely be a trade so that the team can kind of keep their, we've never fired a head coach in team history, kind of thing. When it comes to trading a head coach, guys, especially one of the caliber of Mike Tomlin, usually the price tag is at least a first-round pick. And in the case of Sean Payton, who's kind of at a similar caliber of head coach in terms of the accomplishments that Payton has had in comparison to Mike Tomlin. In fact, Mike Tomlin actually has a better winning percentage in his career to Sean Payton. Sean Payton got a first-round pick and a second-round pick in a trade. Certainly if the Pittsburgh Steelers want to move on, I think that they can get a pretty decent haul of draft picks in exchange for Coach T's services. But something else to keep in mind when it comes to the situation, guys, is that Mike Tomlin will also need to agree to go to any team that he gets traded to. He does have a no-trade clause on his current contract, so it's not like the Steelers can just trade him to a terrible football team and he has nothing to say about it. He would have to hand-pick the team that he would want to go to, and then the Steelers and that team would have to hash out a deal in terms of trade compensation. Now, the teams that have already fired their head coaches, and we already know that they have job openings right now, are the Tennessee Titans and the New York Football Giants. So those are the two teams that for sure will be looking for new head coaches next offseason. Then there's a bunch of other teams that could consider it as well. The Miami Dolphins are certainly a team that a lot of people are speculating could move on from their current head coach, Mike McDaniel. The New York Jets, even though it's just been 1 year with Aaron Glenn, could certainly move on from him. It's been a disaster season in New York. Then the Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals. Those aren't really realistic trade options for the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. There's no way they trade Tomlin to a division rival. But the Las Vegas Raiders, Pete Carroll's old, and that's been a disaster season in Vegas. I'm guessing they could be looking for a new head coach. Atlanta, Raheem Morris has not done a great job there. This season, Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers, it's been multiple years now, and they're still not great. And then same thing goes for Jonathan Gannon with the Arizona Cardinals. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how many of these jobs open up. But out of all these options, out of all 10 of those options, if I'm Coach Tomlin, out of the realistic ones that I could choose from, I think the one that I would choose is the Tennessee Titans. And, the Titans are certainly an organization that I think would be willing to give up quite a bit in draft capital to get some stability at the head coaching position. And if there's anything that Mike Tomlin is known for, it is stability. I mean, you don't go 18 straight consecutive non-losing seasons without having a very stable winning culture at the head coaching position. But, I think that when you are Mike Tomlin, or whether you're Jim Harbaugh, or whether you're Ben Johnson, or whenever you're a big-time head coaching candidate, the number one thing that you look at in terms of trying to pick a new team is the quarterback situation. And out of the 8 teams that could realistically trade for Mike Tomlin this offseason, the 3 top ones for sure are Cam Ward of the Titans, Jackson Dart with the New York Giants. Both of those guys are on rookie contracts. They've shown some good things in their rookie years. They got multiple years of cost control on their rookie deals. And then the Jets, because they have a very early draft pick next year, maybe Tomlin wants to draft his quarterback of choosing. Maybe that would be his preferred option there. But other guys like Tua Tagovailoa on a massive contract, Geno Smith, Michael Penix Jr., Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, all those guys have very questionable futures with their teams. I'm not sure if Tomlin would want to go to any of those franchises because they don't have a solid answer at the quarterback position long term. Plus, Tennessee will have a very high draft pick again next year. So not only do they have the quarterback of the future there in Cam Ward, who has shown some really good things for the Titans this season, but they also have another very high draft pick. So, Tomlin could kind of drive the ship in how the team could use that draft pick. And they also have some established talent there already. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the premier interior pass rushers in the league. T'Vondre Sweat, one of the premier run stuffers at nose tackle. They have a good young receiver in Alec Iamaner. Calvin Ridley's a good veteran wide receiver and a speed threat. I really like Kevin Winston Jr., one of their rookie safeties out of Penn State. Really like his profile. Peter Skowronek's still a young offensive line piece. Lloyd Cushenberry's been known as a really good center throughout his career. They got a decent pair of backs. And then Cedric Gray, a second-year linebacker out of UNC, has really come onto the scene this year. Nobody really watches the Titans, so they don't know anything about Cedric Gray, but he's actually played pretty darn well this year. And then the Titans also have a new stadium on the way in Nashville. So Mike Tomlin, you look at this, kind of situation. You got a fan base that craves stability and would pretty much make him a god if they went 9-8 their first year. Cam Ward, you've got a quarterback of the future on a rookie deal with multiple years of cost control. You've got a really high draft pick, if not the number 1 overall draft pick at your disposal at season's end, heading into the 2026 NFL draft. And you got all these new facilities that you're going to be able to enjoy in years to come. So if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm looking at all those options in terms of teams I'd like to be traded to. I think Tennessee might be at the top of my list. But in the end, guys, I do still expect Mike Tomlin to be back in Pittsburgh next year. I just don't think the Rooney family is going to want to move on. They're very proud of the fact that they've never fired a head coach, and like it or not, Mike Tomlin likely is a future Hall of Fame head coach, and they still owe him a lot of money. So they're not going to just straight up fire him because he is a good head coach, and you don't want to pay millions of dollars to a good head coach to coach against you and bring in somebody else. But the more Pittsburgh flounders, and if this season gets worse and worse as the season goes down, goes down the home stretch, there's going to be more and more smoke surrounding a potential trade surrounding Mike Tomlin. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. All right, this is pretty much the same exact deal that the Broncos gave to the Saints for Sean Payton, only you flipped the years because likely the Titans wouldn't give up the first overall pick to the Steelers in 2026. We're making it a second-round pick in 2026 and then the first-round pick for the Titans in 2027 in exchange for Mike Tomlin. Are you accepting this trade? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our friends at Prize Picks. While I tell you about our sponsor today, let me know A for accept or D for decline. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And guys, it is the holiday season, and in my opinion, this is the best time of the year for watching sports. Whether that means bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while all that action is going on, there is just one place where it feels good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is that how I play is up to me. If I want a little flexibility, I can choose the flex play where I can get paid even if one of my picks misses. But if I'm feeling really strong about my lineup and want a bigger payout for getting it right, I go for the power play. So no matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is, if you know ball. So our lineup this week, Ponzi and I's lineup for Steelers versus Bills here in Week 13. I'm taking the more on touchdowns for DK Metcalf. I just have to get one touchdown there to hit on that one. Then I'm going to take the more on Josh Allen passing yards. Obviously, the Steelers' passing defense hasn't been fantastic this year, and Josh Allen is an elite-level quarterback. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So now back to business here in terms of the 2025 season, where Mike Tomlin, took the podium today for Tomlin Tuesday, and he gave us some updates on the injury front, and then also had a pretty stunning admission here that we are going to get to in just a second. But first, the injury updates. He did say that Broderick Jones, the starting left tackle, and Derrick Harmon, the rookie defensive tackle, will both be out this week. Broderick Jones is dealing with a neck stinger. And then Derrick Harmon got a knee injury in the game last week against the Bears. He finished the game, but apparently it got so bad after the fact that he's going to have to be out this week. And really, the Derrick Harmon injury concerns me because you're already down Daniel Ekuale, who is one of your better run defenders. And, Harmon has really had to take on the role of the bigger body run defender type in this defense alongside Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. And he's done a really good job of it. And you guys remember how bad the Steelers' rushing defense was the first 2 weeks of the year against the Jets and the Seahawks when, Derrick Harmon was still dealing with his knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. So Y.A. Black, the massive nose tackle out of Iowa, is really going to have to step up big time this week and maybe even in future weeks. Now, we've seen some good play from Y.A. He had a big forced fumble and recovery, ripped it away from the Bears running back last week to get a big-time turnover for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And obviously, he's a big, hulking human being with a lot of man strength. So hopefully he's going to be able to do a good job in rotation and kind of step into almost a pseudo starting role and into the starting rotation for this defense. Now, two guys that are likely to return to the starting lineup this week against the Bills, Aaron Rodgers. I believe the wording that Mike Tomlin used was that he was extremely optimistic about Aaron Rodgers' chances of playing. Rodgers apparently pushed to play last week, but the Steelers team doctors wanted to give him a week to rest and get right. And then Alex Highsmith, who's been dealing with a pec injury the last couple of weeks, is expected to be back this week as well. Then three guys that will be limited to start the week, and Tomlin made it seem like they were a little bit more questionable heading into this week. Joey Porter Jr., who left Sunday's game with a hip injury, a hip flexor injury, so hopefully he can get out there and be able to play because he is this team's number one corner. DK Metcalf actually dealing with an ankle injury, not a knee there. No, sorry for the typo there, but DK Metcalf is dealing with an ankle injury, and he was able to finish the game, which tells me he's probably going to play, but he's going to be limited to start the week. And then Ben Skowronek, who did a really great job blocking for the Steelers' run game this past week. He's dealing with a shoulder injury, and he will start the week limited in practice. So with Joey Porter Jr., kind of dealing with this hip flexor injury, who knows if he's actually going to be able to play. JPJ can't go. Could this be the week that the Pittsburgh Steelers elevate Asante Samuel Jr. from the practice squad? Mike Tomlin was asked about this during his press conference today. This is what he had to say. We're always open to our practice squad guys as elevating particularly those with the resume like Samuel's. So he's only been here a short period of time. He's working his tail off to not only get in football conditioning, but learn what to do. So we'll see on the Asante Samuel Jr. front. If Porter can't go, I would certainly think about elevating Asante Samuel Jr. this week if I and head coach Mike Tomlin. But Tomlin did also make a stunning admission during his press conference today as well, which is that, he suggested that he and the Steelers coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, are now considering targeting the middle of the field more. Now, we actually did a whole video on this earlier this week. You guys can check it out. I think this is Mike Tomlin's biggest flaw, is that he kind of orders his offense and his passing offense to not target the middle of the field. But he was asked about it directly today, and it sounds like he's open to doing some things differently down the stretch. Tomlin said, quote, "It's week to week depending on the schematics of the team or the teams we compete against. Choose to deploy, but certainly largely if you look at the large body of work, there's probably some more opportunities for us in the interior portions of the field." So hopefully that's the start of Mike Tomlin kind of realizing that not targeting the middle of the field, both intermediate and deep, certainly puts a limit and puts kind of a ceiling on this Steelers passing attack. If defenses know you don't target a certain area of the field, they're going to take away the areas of the field that you actually do target. It's just the way that it works. And if you kind of threaten the middle of the field and you make the defense respect that, that's going to open up the sidelines. It's going to open up the underneath stuff that the Pittsburgh Steelers like to run. So I think that this is a big step that the Steelers offense can take forward. And if they can make that step, I legitimately think this team can be dangerous down the stretch. But I guess we're just going to have to see if they're going to be able to do that. And the things I saw from Arthur Smith in terms of his offensive game planning last week, specifically in the second half, were very encouraging. There were multiple in-breakers. They ran twin double cross, which is one of my favorite deep concepts. They ran slot cross with DK Metcalf running deep crosses quite a bit. He was open multiple times. It's just Mason Rudolph just never threw the ball over the middle of the field when there were open receivers there. He always opted to go towards the sideline. So it wasn't even necessarily that the Steelers didn't have anybody over the middle of the field that was open. They did. It was that the quarterback, Mason Rudolph, maybe it's the Tomlin programming during his many years in Pittsburgh, but he just didn't want to throw the ball over the middle of the field. And I'm hoping with Aaron Rodgers getting back into the lineup this week, we're going to see this Steelers offense attack the middle of the field more, because I really think it could be the missing piece to the Steelers offense heading down the stretch. And if they can actually make that a part of their offensive attack, not only do I think, you add another element there, but it also makes the other elements of your offense, all right, attacking outside the numbers, underneath your run game. It's going to make those elements of your offense even better, because teams are going to have to allocate resources elsewhere, opening up more space and opportunities to those other areas of the field. So I guess we'll just have to see if Mike Tomlin's word there is good and we actually see this offense target the middle of the field more in recent weeks. But predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Pittsburgh's passing offense turn it around before the end of the season? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, I have hope, but definitely cautious optimism at this point that they could turn things around. But let me know your answer, yes or no, down there in the comments. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. We're going to continue to get you guys Steelers coverage all throughout this week. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.